You came first, so name and what you do.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I am with the Oklahoma PTI.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Will we see you in a couple weeks at the CASE conference in Oklahoma City? Well, I'm glad I saw you now then. Something I should do that?
I want to go. I'm Jeremiah Witten. I'm a program specialist with the El Dorado Charter SELPA, but I work down in San Diego, California.
Oh, we're gonna come see you soon. Did you know that? Okay. I love
I
it.
missed it now because I was all talking about
El Dorado SELPA.
El Dorado something. Right.
I'll let you tell people are quiet before I do my introduction. Christian, and I am the executive director of the Shasta County Special Education Local Planning Area.
Shasta County is where?
Northern California.
Northern California. Okay, very good. Thank you. Here you are, my dear.
I'm Amber Bousset. I don't really know how to answer your question because I have many roles, but I would say one of my biggest roles is I am the independent child advocate contracted through the Solano County SELPA.
Okay, Solano County, I know you. And thank you for being an advocate. That's making me feel, it's making me feel purposeful. Okay, appreciate that. That's it.
I'm Patty Buckmiller. I'm the assistant soup of Ed Services for Redlands Unified. It's in SoCal.
Hi, I'm Emily Whitson. I work for the ARC of Tennessee. I am family support and training coordinator under our family engagement team.
Hi, I'm Natalie Holdren, and I oversee the Ed Specialist Credential Program at UC Santa Barbara, and I'm also a consultant.
And a great researcher, just if you want some research.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I am the training manager for the Federation for Children with Special Needs, which is the parent center in Massachusetts.
I love it. Okay.
Sarah Matarazzo. I'm a contract facilitator and mediator with Oregon Department of Ed.
Okay, Oregon, that's right.
I'm Scott Bellows. I just wandered into the hotel looking for a free buffet.
Well, hey, at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, free drinks on us.
That's why I'm sticking around.
Okay, good.
No, I too am a contract mediator facilitator in Oregon.
Okay.
I am also a contract mediator and facilitator in the state of Oregon, Tim Hicks.
Okay.
Esperanza Reyes, Utah Parent Center, our state's parent training and information center, as well as family to family health information center.
Okay.
I love that we have a wide variety here.
We do, but a lot of parent advocates in here too, and PTIs and we're happy about that. So when we talk about empowering the student voice, we're going to get into in a minute. And I know you're going to all roll your eyes when I say this, but I want you to please all stand up. Just do it. Please stand up. Okay. I'm going to put some words on the screen and I just want you to read them. Not a trick. Okay, go.
Oh, you can read it.
Oh, to yourself. Sorry. Could have said that.
But also, thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put those same words back up on the screen. And what I want you to do is count the letter F. F is like in the word finished. Okay, go. Okay. If you counted 2 or 3 Fs, sit down. If you counted 4 Fs, sit down. If you counted 5 Fs, sit down. Oh, she's good. If you counted 6 Fs, sit down. Look at that.
Hey, Bestie.
Yeah, I know.
I counted 6.
For once, we've only seen it 1,000 times. Okay.
Did it.
Well, guess what? There's 6 Fs. Aha. Okay. So the point of the exercise is really simply this. We all read that at the same time. We all had the same amount of time to read that, right? But we didn't all come away with the same thing. We didn't all see the same thing. So now let's switch to special education or an IEP meeting. We all go to the same meeting. We all hear the same things, but we don't all walk away with the same information based on our experiences that we've had, based on our perceptions of things, based on our biases, which by the way, we all have, whether we like to admit it or not, right? So we come out of that meeting not maybe all on the same page. So what we're going to invite you to do in the next 90 minutes that we have together is to really think about how what we're going to share with you matches the clientele in which you work with, whether it's students that you teach or students that you have or whatever that is. And we hope that you take away a few more F's, a few more nuggets of information. But it is your perceptions are based on your experiences, right? So what you are going to take away might be different based on the age of the students that you work with, might be different based on the culture in which you work, might be based on the ability levels of the students that you work with, right? So we're hoping that you open your mind and take the nuggets of information that you can apply to you. All right, well, aren't we cute? Okay, people always ask us, who are we and what do we do? And it's a long explanation. So we came up with, we do for families and schools what counselors do for couples. We help them communicate. It's really as simple as that. So my name is Cassie.
And I'm Robin.
And we are Kasabin. Okay, so there you go. So we are best friends and business partners, and we own Key2 Ed. And you may know us from our IEP facilitation training. That's sort of our flagship training, but we do many, many other things. But our real goal is to improve school and family partnerships. Both of us have been in education for 30 years. I know, starting when I was 5. 30 years, this is our 30th year, both of us, in special education, wearing all the hats, from teachers to administrators. We're both certified mediators, facilitators. I was a neutral facilitator in Scottsdale, Arizona, where it was sort of a come in as a resolution versus what we're after in IEP facilitation is prevention, right? But some places, there's a time and a place when there's attorneys involved or relationships are already broken that you need somebody neutral to come in. And so I had that job for a while. So we bring you boots on the ground experience with this. But what we want you to think about, we're going to give you examples from teachers, parents, and students, but they're in high school and they're pretty high functioning. But we're also going to give you a scenario of somebody that's much younger, because what we are advocating for is that the student voice happens right away from an early onset age. We don't wait until transition, right? We got to get them involved in an early age. So we're going to talk about how to do that. By the end of this presentation, we hope that we'll have a shared understanding of the power of the student's voice in the actual IEP meeting, how educators can prepare the students to participate in their IEP meetings. You guys have a folder in front of you. We'll get to that in a minute. There's resources in there that you're going to be able to use and take back right away. But we're also going to give you specific research-based tools and strategies that you can also implement right away when you leave here. And finally, the long-lasting effects of the students' participation in the IEP meeting. Okay, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about what we know. What does research tell us about this? Why it's important? Oh, why it's important. Okay, what does the research tell us? The why behind including students in their IEP. How can we prepare them no matter what their ability level, no matter what their age, no matter what their culture? How can we bring them into the meeting so they have a voice? And finally, the outcome. What is the outcome of the fabulous work that we're doing? Okay. All right, open your folders. You're going to find a handout in there titled Perceptions. Please take that out. These are 5 perceptions that people have about including children in their IEP meeting. This is going to be twofold. The first thing I want you to do is silently read them to yourself. If you agree with the statement, put an X by it. If you disagree with the statement, circle the words that make that statement disagreeable to you. Okay? And then I'll give you the next set of directions in a minute. Please do that. See, a few of you are done. Now what I'd like you to do is at your tables with your neighbor, however you want to do this, have a discussion and share your perceptions. Now, the purpose of this is not to share them to try to convince the other person why their perception is right or wrong, right? It's, well, I mean, if I think it's right, I'm just saying. No, it's not the point of that. The point is to just try to understand somebody else's perception. So we're going to just give you a couple minutes, maybe pick a couple people, whatever you want to do, and just share your perceptions with one another. Go.
I don't know how to answer the second one, so.
Share a few of our perceptions to you, our audience back at home. So I'm going to zoom out all the way. And yeah, let's talk about our perceptions.
perceptions of what they're doing. Well, our perceptions that have to do with whether or not students are included in their IEP to us. Yes. Is that the perception is that they are included at the first time they are going to an IEP meeting. Now, that might look different because of their age and ability. We also have to consider the family. Sometimes, which we're going to talk about in a minute, doesn't want their child to even know they have an IEP. So how do we address that? How do we get the child involved?
And so some dangers in those perceptions is the why behind why doesn't a family want to have their child involved in the IEP? And through the work that we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how we can change that perception and compare the student, compare the family, and have a much more meaningful IEP.
Yeah, they have a seat at the table. They have a voice. They're not just there, they're actually contributing. So that's what we're gonna get into.
And breaking down perceptions that they're not, they really shouldn't be there until a certain time.
Right.
You know, because I think
That's what federal law says the age
Yeah.
is, but rather when we want them to be included at kindergarten, at first grade, at second grade, and we're gonna talk about how to do that.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys.
So, yeah, I think I'm going to send in there.
Okay, take about 30 more seconds to finish your conversations or thoughts. All right. Perception is reality, right? Perception is reality. And really, if our ultimate goal is to include students in their IEP meeting and empower them to have a voice in that, we really need to consider everybody's perceptions because they're not all the same. Okay? All right. Robin.
Okay, just note to self, when I have a microphone in my hand, I feel like doing some karaoke. But we were told that is not appropriate yet. Okay, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
5:30, whatever time it is. What we know. Okay, so let's look at what we know through 2 lenses. We're going to talk about it through research as well as common sense and practical application. And I'm just going to put that right there so I can click. Let's start with common sense. I think it's probably fair to say for everybody in this room, knowing who we are, that when you empower student voice, you also empower the student. Would that be fair? Can we all agree to that? Okay, good. Well, what else we get from that is it gives students a seat at the table, quite literally, but also so that they can have say in what's happening. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. It normalizes challenges. And I don't know about you guys talking about normal challenges, but I had challenges, probably 4, just getting up this morning and getting to breakfast on time. So challenges are normal, and having a seat at the table and talking about their challenges really normalizes that. In addition, it views the student as an asset to the process. I'm going to repeat that. It views the student as an asset to the process. We're really going to dig into that, how we can make sure not only are they there to share some of their content, their information, but how can they be a part of how we run our IEP meetings? Talk about empowerment and that voice. Next, encourages the student to be a self-advocate. Isn't that what we all want in the end? My son, who has a disability, for those of you who know me, probably already know that. Now he is 25. I started him not as early as I am training you guys to be honest with you. I just wanted to control everything. And so I didn't let him have a voice quite yet. But when we got to the age where he was really doing well, we did some preparation work. And now, fast forward, when he got his first job at McDonald's, which was a real exciting thing for us, he took his strengths and challenges card to the interview to tell them what his strengths would be as a worker and what some of his challenges he needed to help with. And now he was able to go through an entire program with welding and get a job. And I know it's because we all as a team practiced with him. So keep that in mind and don't do what I did, which was I didn't start as early as I should have. Remember, early learning experiences leave a lasting impact. So we know we want to try to do this earlier than we're doing it right now. And I'm speaking to the general because I know some of you around the tables are saying, well, I do it early. Great. If you do, help spread the knowledge. Oh, and we'll be interested to hearing from you. Okay, let's dig a little bit into what research says. Now, I'm sorry this is kind of an older study, but I think the data holds. So let's look at this. This is from the National Longitude Transition Study 2. And basically what it did, it measured student involvement in IEP meetings from the year 2000 to the year 2009. So quite long. The students were from ages 13 up. So what they did is they got this data from them, but I want to play a little game because I love games. And maybe there's even a prize.
Maybe there is.
I don't even actually know that. So maybe
There is.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, how we're going to do this fun game is I'm going to read the data on the left-hand side of your, that's actually on the right-hand side of your screen.
Nope,
And then
left.
we're looking at
It's the left.
Good job, you guys. You already won.
That's
Right
like
there.
we had
That
four
was the
challenges.
game. That was the game. Okay, so I'm going to read the data. And then you guys are going to think about it. You can talk to your neighbor if you want, but then you're going to yell out because we love a little discourse here. And we want you to just say, I think A is in the blank color. Okay, so let's do it. Attends meeting. Now remember, we're talking about students in IEP meetings. Attend meetings, provide significant input, take a leadership role in the planning process. Where do you think that falls on that pie chart? Blue. Okay, let's see. Meh. Wow. We didn't practice that.
I know. It was good though, wasn't it?
It was good.
Okay.
Okay, wow. I like to hear wow.
Yeah.
Don't you love to be surprised in the good way? So that's great. Actually, it's 12.2%. So we have some things happening here. We're not the very smallest. Okay, B, attend meetings and provide some input. What do we think?
Red.
Okay, blue and red. Doo, doo, doo. Well, let's just see. Again, oh,
That's exciting.
it's green. Okay, that's exciting. 57.7% of the students that were polled attended meetings and provided some input. And we don't really know what that input was, but it was some, not necessarily the A, but a step down. All right.
Where was the study done? What state or what?
Oh, I can get you national,
but
across,
yeah.
yeah. That's a really good question. And actually, I think we have a slide on our references for your, okay. Okay, C, attend meetings, provide little or no input. Red, we're thinking red. Okay, I think we're deducing this. Yes, red, that's right.
I'll pass out the prize. Keep going.
Okay. And then we know the last one, the 5% do not attend meetings, provide no input. So what does this data say to you guys? What are your thoughts about this?
Ooh.
Is that better or worse?
Ours is worse.
Worse. Less students are attending. You're in the right spot then, because we're going to give you some strategies to encourage that attendance. What else? What does the data tell us? What we need to do?
Thanks.
We need to do better. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? But it's not simple. I mean, you're going to think it is when you walk out of here, but we are going to do better for sure. And certainly, like I said, this is an older research, but I have done others and I've looked through the data and it's pretty consistent with what we know, or not so much. Yes, Natalie.
It also makes me feel a little bit sad. Like imagine sitting in a full IEP meeting about you and having no.
Little or no input.
That's terrible.
That's terrible.
People talking about us about what we don't understand in a meeting, and we're going to talk about some perceptions of the kids in a minute, of the students, what they're thinking about those meetings. And you're exactly right. It doesn't feel good. Excellent. Okay, let's keep going. Oops, I forgot my D. So 2 more pieces of research here. I brought them into issues, and then we're going to see if there's a solution to it. Would somebody volunteer to read that first issue? Yes.
Youth with disabilities continue to demonstrate post-secondary outcomes that are unequal to those of typical peers.
Okay. We know this. Okay. Shall I have her repeat it? I'm getting some information from the back. Yes.
Issue: youth with disabilities continue to demonstrate post-secondary outcomes that are unequal to those of typical peers.
Yeah, that did sound better. That did sound better through that. So, okay, we know this, don't we? We hear this over and over. It continues to bubble up that they're just not demonstrating the same. So the next one, a specific cause for conflict during IEP meetings includes a lack of meaningful opportunity for involvement for students with disabilities. So they're not demonstrating as well as their same age peers, and then they don't even participate in it anyway, and that causes conflict. And I can, yes.
What causes conflict where?
That's a great question. And I was just going to say, here's a little picture, just personal picture, not of my son, because no conflict for us, because all the people worked for me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He was just a really sweet kid, wanted to learn. So anyway, some of the conflict comes from them not focusing on the actual kid when the kid is not in the meeting. So for example, I just helped to go to a meeting with my niece. Her son is 2E in autism and gifted. And we walked in, they heard that I was coming. Not that it mattered, I'm not an advocate, I'm an aunt. I was coming for my nephew. We sat down and it was immediately nobody made eye contact. We got right to it. We weren't even allowed to introduce ourselves. When I introduced myself, the principal said, nope, we're just gonna get right to the contact. We already know it. It was crazy. I know, I was a little sweaty pits. So and I said, is Wyatt coming to the meeting? And as soon as he was on his way down. We had kind of preset that up because he is now 13. He should have been at the meeting long ago. As soon as he walked in, the whole room changed. I was sitting in awe. The dynamics, the teachers started smiling, and he's a tricky kid. It's not, they weren't smiling because he's so fun. They just remembered why they were there. The parents started smiling. She forgot what she was mad about because she saw around the table the reactions. Now that's one isolated incident, but some of that happens. The other conflict is miscommunication. We think we have communicated well, but we don't have students in the IEP meeting helping us to understand how their experience is. So we're talking for someone potentially that doesn't have a voice. Those are two big pieces of conflict. Yeah.
No, well, and something else with meaningful opportunities, I think, is the highlight there, because so often kids come to their IEP meetings and they don't have an idea, how to self-advocate. They don't have any self-determination skills, which we'll talk about. They have no idea about the IEP process either. So they're not sure when they're supposed to communicate. And so that in and of itself causes conflict. And when people leave an IEP meeting and they don't feel like they had meaningful opportunity, they don't feel heard, they don't feel like they had a voice, just that alone will cause conflict. So, yeah.
Yes. Hold on, I think I'm going to get the evil eye.
I also think it's important because when students, especially with students like who have ADHD and things like that, if they have to have accommodations and they need to be advocating for those accommodations or actually using those accommodations, if they don't have buy-in and everybody else picks those accommodations.
Wait till we get more into this, because we have some resources for you that help with that. But you're so right. I mean,
if they're not willing to use them, then it's as useless as the paper.
Exactly.
Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts they want to share? Yes.
I think often when I've come in as an advocate, the conflict is because the adults can't get along and it's not even about the child anymore.
Correct.
And so I've more recently, just because of everything that's going on, had to say, hold up, stop. What are we here for? And just asking that question, and everyone's like, well, we're here for, okay, but we're not even talking about that student anymore. Now we're talking about how I don't like you and you don't like me. And so can we bring it back to what we were doing? And so I think that's just something that's what I've seen as a pattern of conflict in meetings that I've been in.
Absolutely.
Focused. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, let's see also, I think there's a solution in research, and we're going to read it now. When students are empowered in the IEP process at a developmentally appropriate level, they can develop self-determination skills. Cassie's going to define those and talk us through how we can do that. and that positively impact that was a lot of P's, positively impact post-secondary outcomes. Our solution is we need to get them in those IEP meetings, but not just throw them in there so that they're just sitting and listening, that they're developing those skills. So we're starting ahead of time. We're not just saying, hey, next week you have an IEP meeting and here's your goals and okay, are you ready? So we're going to take that strategically and talk about how we can do that. Okay, the why. Let me make sure I'm on my thing. Okay, research is great. Now you have that perceptions sheet that you had. Go ahead and turn that over. We're going to watch some videos in the through the perspective of a teacher, a parent, and then the student on the why of why we should include or what we want to do with students going into the IEP meetings. While you're watching it, I'd love for you to write down something that resonates with you, something you think is important, something that you can bring back to a colleague or a family member, and then we'll share out on that.
When I think of bringing in self-directed IEPs, I feel like that's like the next evolution of getting the kids in the game more, because it's allowing them to vocalize and be heard. Like, this is what I need in the classroom. This is how I'm feeling. And I think if nothing else, it makes them more of an active participant in their education and in this whole process.
But I would require that the student be there. The student is the focus of this entire meeting. And so without the student being there, I don't think that they're a part of the goal, a part of the success plan that we're trying to create for this student. And they can't advocate for themselves then either. And so they need to hear it. We need to hear from them, and we need to work together in order to help them be where they need to be.
Any thoughts that came to you or anything that you wrote down? Are you still thinking? Yes. Oh, we'll go here first and then you.
Good, Mike.
Hold on.
I think the very first speaker hit the nail on the head with quoting the student, "This is what I need in the classroom," because it's not what I believe so-and-so needs. It's very much themselves, and that perspective can really only be had best by them.
Very good.
Already said.
Already said it. Okay, very good. Yes, absolutely. Anybody else want to share what they thought? Okay, we're going to move on to the parent perspective. Teacher.
When I think of bringing in.
Yep.
Did you feel in any way that Abby's participation in the IEP meetings helped to sort of mitigate any disputes, or if there was conflict, that her voice and her being there would help with that?
So I do think having her there was, I don't know if it's necessarily mitigate problems, but just hearing from her voice, it was much more powerful than coming from me, because I would say it and they'd kind of look at me. And so I would just be like, you know what, just
yeah,
you can trust me butts to share. So just when she would share, I would do a lot of clarifying questions to help her really explain what she was trying to mean or say. So I think it helped in that way. It really helped her voice be heard at the table.
Thoughts from the group about that, about the parent's perspective?
It's more powerful coming from the student.
More powerful coming from the student. I'm going to recap. Yes, more powerful. What do you think? Yes.
I also thought that it was interesting that she said it didn't really help mitigate the conflict. And I think that that's really important, because I think that's a lot of what's happening in IEP meetings recently, but it did help to get her voice across. So it's not necessarily going to resolve the conflict, but it's at least allowing and empowering her to have that voice.
Yes. And it's, conflict's going to happen. We're talking about a human being here. And we have so many people around that table that love that human being and want them empowered, but we start to get into our me versus you. So having that person at the table that the whole plan is about, no matter their ability level, really helps us to focus back in on that.
And can I add something to that too about mitigating conflict? She had said, I don't know that it's so much about mitigating conflict, but when you have a student in the IEP and you're bringing that focus back to that individual, right? And people aren't, even if you have to, as a facilitator or somebody, say, hold on, it sounds like we've gotten off topic here. We're not talking about Johnny anymore. Let's focus back on his needs. That alone helps mitigate some of the conflict. So, and some of the resources we're going to share with you here shortly also help to mitigate that conflict. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, now let's hear from Abby, the student.
Did you notice as you started going to your meetings, you know, as a freshman, it was scary and you had anxiety, but then over time, did it evolve? Did it change as you went through?
Yes, because as I got older and as I was a junior, senior in high school, I started really advocating for myself and be like, this is how it's going to work. We're going to go my way because I said so, but also because I'm advocating for what I need. And if you're not going to listen, then why am I here? Like,
right.
But I just really started advocating and speaking up. And my parents were like, well, you need to advocate. Like, you need to say something. So I did. And I was like, this is how it's going to work, or else we're just wasting time.
Okay. You gotta love Abby.
Gotta love
yeah,
Abby.
Yeah, but it's true. You know, she was feeling like she wasn't being heard. And then her parents, upon more interview with Pilar, her mom, she was saying that the teachers were sort of glazing over what Pilar was trying to bring to the table. They were getting the glazy eyes and sort of listening. But when Abby came, they all started to sit up, hearing it from Abby's voice. And Pilar did say, I was trying not to put my words into her words. I wasn't coaching her. I wanted her to genuinely tell them how she feels in school, what's scary for her, what is great for her, what challenges she has. So that's important. Yes. Hold, please.
I think that sometimes advocacy can turn into self-preservation. And from what I can hear from Abby, she was like, it's going to get done, or, you know, what's going to happen. But she had it. This was a situation where she knew this was an opportunity for her and she needed to really express. So
yeah,
that's true. And you're right. She had it. She was tired of going to those meetings.
And one thing I want to add to that too is Abby didn't go. Yes. Oh.
I have a contribution.
Oh, good. Okay. Do you need it? Okay. One of the things while she's bringing him the mic, that I wanted to say about Abby was, that Abby didn't go into that IEP meeting for the first time saying those things. Well, this is what I need. This is how it's going to go, or else. That took years of preparation for her to get to that place. And so what self-determination skills do we need to teach kids to prepare them? And can it start at a very young age? And we say absolutely. So we're going to share some of that in a minute. Joe.
So I'll say I got my first IEP in 3rd grade. I attended every single IEP meeting we ever had. If I couldn't attend, if I was sick, we would reschedule. However, just because I was in the room didn't mean it was effective or meaningful because there was no preparation for me to have an authentic, meaningful voice in that process.
Right.
I had when the teacher would look across and say, what support do you need to be productive? It's like, I knew I could have extended time on my test. I knew I could take in a quiet room and that I could have less words on my spelling test. Like, those were the only things I knew existed. And I had no idea that there was the opportunity for creativity in the process.
Yeah.
So without that preparation, none of this is effective in my experience.
We appreciate your experience, your firsthand experience.
So I have a daughter that has Down syndrome, and starting in 7th grade, which I know could have been earlier, we talked about her IEP before, but she didn't really attend the meetings. But she started doing her own presentations at the beginning of every IEP meeting. And so it started out as like, there was a template and it was like more like a kind of like an interview. Like there were questions that we had prepped her for and then she would answer, but then we used that template and now she's a freshman and she like created she can use that template and kind of fill it in and present it herself now. She's still really shy, but she does go in there and and do it. And then we give her the choice whether, like how long she wants to stay. It's up to her if she wants to stay as we go through, but she gets to say, like she talks about her strengths, the things she likes, the things she doesn't like, what she wants to be when she grows up, how she learns best, her favorite subjects. And all of that is like,
part of it. Yeah. And I heard you say it's starting at 7th grade, and that's fantastic. I mean, that's more, as we see by the longitudinal study that was done, that we want those numbers to increase, but we want it to start earlier. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. Why don't students participate?
Okay, well, don't just take Abby's word for it. We actually wanted to go a little bit deeper, and we interviewed some more students about why they don't go to their meetings. And this is what they said. I didn't know I could. Yikes. I don't want to be embarrassed. I get that. My son was also very shy. He did not want to go. It was definitely dragging him in at first, and then he became more comfortable. I don't know what to say. Again, if they don't know, Joe, even you had said, if they don't know what to say or they don't know how to participate, it's not something that comes intrinsically. As we know, even as adults, we don't know how to participate until we do. I think I'll get in trouble for my grades. Well, I wouldn't want to go there either if I thought I was going to get in trouble. And the teachers, don't listen to me. Perception is reality. That's what they were thinking. And so again, we need to do better. To quote you earlier, we just need to do a little bit better. This is what students are thinking about the process. So how do we prepare them?
How do we prepare them?
Oh, you don't need that.
I don't need that. That's
Double
nice. Okay. How do we prepare them? Where's my clicker? Here it is. All right. Again, we started out by saying how we prepare students completely depends on the age, the ability levels, and the culture in which you work. Okay, so keeping that in mind as we move through this. What skills can all team members do to prepare the student? And I want to draw attention to all team members. Oftentimes people think it's just the teacher, the special ed, whatever, to get them ready for their IEP. And as you said, don't do it a week before. The preparation can happen throughout their entire school year. It can happen with parents at home. It can happen with their related service providers. It takes a village. We should all be working as a team for that. So what can we do to prepare them? First is disability awareness, okay? But let me ask you, have you had experience with families where you you talked to the family and they did not want their child to know they had any sort of label or disability, let alone have an IEP? So we have to think through, what would we do to empower those families or educate those families so that they knew the why, which Robin just talked about. It is important that they're included. So disability awareness is very important. The next one is self-determination skills, okay? There are quite a few self-determination skills to work on. We're going to just talk about a few of them. The first one is self-knowledge. Again, that goes back to disability awareness. If you don't have self-knowledge about what your strengths and your challenges are, how can you advocate for yourself? We want kids to have self-advocacy, to be able to say what they need. I mean, Abby was a perfect example of that. She knew what she needed, and this is how we're going to do it or else, right? But we need to teach self-advocacy skills, but in order to do that, they have to have self-knowledge and disability awareness. Okay, the next one is goal setting. When I was in the classroom, I found it really interesting when I would ask kids, well, we're going to do reading, and I know what their goal is, and I would ask them, and they have no idea where they're at, what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve. It's similar to like a New Year's resolution. I'm going to tell you what your New Year's resolution is, and you don't know what it is though, but good luck meeting that goal, right? That's it. I mean, it sounds absurd, but that's what we do. We write goals for students, and of course we write it in our legal jargon language that has to meet all of those, standards, but they need to know what their goals are and be a part of that process. Decision-making and problem solving, same thing. They need to be a voice in those decision-making and problem solving things. And in order to do that, they have to be at the IEP meeting. But we have to prepare them to do that. And that's not going to happen a week prior to their meeting. Communication and technology skills. As we said, it takes a village. So if a child has communication goals, let's say, how can we use goal setting to write goals that actually have meaningful purpose to preparing them for their IEP meeting, because then they're working on an actual goal in their IEP to prepare to be at the table at their IEP meeting. They then have purpose for that goal. But that takes a lot of collaboration and a lot of work amongst the team in order to be able to do that. IEP meeting awareness. Not only do they need self-determination skills to know about themselves, know about their strengths, know about their challenges, but they also need to know, what is an IEP meeting? What does that process look like, so that it isn't scary or daunting to go into that meeting? So that's what IEP meeting awareness is, and Robin's going to talk to us about that in a minute. And finally, participation strategies for the individual student involvement. Again, can't say it enough. Completely is determined on age, culture, and ability level. Okay. What we've been working on and continue to show you is high school students. Okay. That's who we videoed. That's who we spoke to. But we want you to start thinking about, how can we do this with a child who's in first grade? So in your folder, you have this document. If you would go to that and pull that out, the Kevin scenario. And if I could have a volunteer to read Kevin's scenario, that would be great. Oh, he's back there. Yep. Awesome. They're like, I'm always, no, but over here, back here, right there. Yeah.
Okay. Good job fighting over volunteer.
I may be a poor candidate. Which one am I reading?
The Kevin scenario, it's in there.
Uh-huh.
Oh, perfect.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Kevin is a first grader. He receives special education services in all academic areas. He also receives speech services in the areas of language and communication. He's a social child and gets along well with his peers and adults. He follows two-step directions and takes turns when prompted. The family is hesitant to include him in the IEP meeting for fear of damaging his self-esteem.
Okay. We all might know a Kevin at some point in our careers. Okay, keep that handout out and your pen. We're going to come back to those self-determination and IEP awareness in a minute. Because as we move through now, we're going to do the next part of this in two compartments. We're going to frame it in self-determination and advocacy, and then we're going to, which is what we just talked about, and then we're going to talk about the IEP meeting awareness, which is more of the process of the IEP. Because those are two different ways in which you can include a child in the IEP, depending on age, culture, and ability level. Okay, these two areas. So we're going to watch a video, a very 1 minute video or so, to see how this teacher prepared the child in self-advocacy.
We started our very first lesson of the school year was self-determination with their IEPs. And so last year we waited until about 5-6 weeks into the school year. And typically we share accommodations and goals with the teachers. This year we had the kids do that within the first 2 weeks of school. They created their own one-pager and they rewrote their goals in their own words, and they put meaningful description of their own needs, like a paragraph about what their own needs were. And then they delivered those to their teachers face to face. And it's been really great. We've had, I would say, maybe 10% of the kids kind of uncomfortable and embarrassed.
Yeah.
But the other kids have done it. It's been a great experience. We've had so many teachers come and be like, this kid came to me and we had the best conversation about what they would need this year. So definitely. And in years past, it's been like, we send out this digital document and the teachers have to click a little verification button saying they accepted it. And who knows if they've actually like read it, or do they just file it away?
Sure.
And here, at least on a higher level, I know that the kids have been communicated with, and questions have come up about, how do we do this? How do we support like that? So.
Okay, so in my experience, and maybe yours, when kids go to, or as a teacher, I will say back then, many moons ago, we would bring the IEP, I would meet with the teachers, right? We would go over it in this 25-page legal document. We would go over it, we'd read all the legal jargon, we'd point out certain accommodations that we came up with, not the kids, right? On this drop-down menu that we have on our paperwork that we choose from. And it would just sort of be like, okay, sounds good. Instead, having a resource like this and the one pager that the teacher referred to, and we're going to talk about that next, but you have this resource in your folder. You can get it out if you want, but you have it to take with you. If you look at the top where it says present levels of performance, how will you present or participate in your IEP meeting? Verbally, note cards, PowerPoint, as you said with your child, make a video. And again, those are for higher functioning kids. I want you to think about the Kevin scenario, that first grader, okay? And you can go back and read about him. How would you use this document to help Kevin be a participant in his IEP meeting? Obviously, that's going to need to be modified like crazy, right? But the idea is still the same. What self-determination skills can you take from this to help Kevin? What strengths do you have? What do you like to do? What do you do well? And you write them down if Kevin can't, or he records them on a recorder or whatever, so that he can be a participant in that present levels of performance part of his IEP document or part of his meeting, the team collaborating about that. What challenges based on your ideas about what is hard for you and how can you explain why it's hard? And have conversations. And that can look so different, again, depending on age, ability level, and culture. What accommodations? What do you need or use to help you in the classroom or at home to help you with assignments? If he's able to articulate that as a first grader, or may not be, you can help them, but he could have some note cards and he could contribute that in the meeting, right? So using this document is one thing. Here is the next document that teacher referred to. It's called a one-pager. I encourage you to go to imdetermined.org. It's a website that has lots and lots of awesome resources for including kids in their IEP meetings. But this one-pager Aubrey did, and we're going to hear from Aubrey later in the presentation. But Aubrey is an 11th grader. She came up with those accommodations. She was the one that wrote down that those are the things that she thought she needed. Now, for somebody like Kevin, he's not going to be able to know all of that. We will know as his teacher, parent, related service providers, the team, what things that he might need that he could write down and maybe read, or a picture of it or whatnot that he could share at the meeting. The description of needs is awesome. Look down at the second paragraph. My autism makes it harder for me to read the room. My past teachers have said that I raise my hand too much and I need to do it less. When you're sitting as a team in an IEP meeting and everybody around that team is hearing that because Aubrey's reading it, or Kevin would be showing note cards about it, or a video of it, those things are going to stick a lot more with the team to be able to help Aubrey or help Kevin than it would be to just share a legal document that has all of our legal jargon in it. So this one pager is super powerful. So what I want you to do now is go back to the Kevin scenario, and where it says self-determination, reread that scenario and think about what are a couple of things that you could do to prepare Kevin in the area of self-determination for his IEP meeting. And remember, this isn't something that's done the week before. And I want to point out too, remember, we could have goals. Kevin could have goals for reading or writing or communication that we actually write as self-determination goals to prepare him for his IEP meeting. So we'll give you just a minute or two to think about that, write it down, and we'll ask you to share out. Okay, who would be willing to share? What could we do to prepare a first grader with Kevin's sort of profile for his IEP meeting? How could he be a participant? Yes, microphone.
I put down, like, you could show him pictures so he could have like options. So that would be like a picture, like a visual check, checks. You could also create a one pager, but more in a visual one pager for him.
Yeah.
You could even like cut out his own pictures of things that he does, like in his house, like things, pictures of his friends, pictures of his like favorite toys, things like that.
Yeah.
Books that he likes to read. And also he does have language and communication. I don't know, it doesn't say this, but also you could use like whatever communication system he's using, like if he has an AAC device or if he's using PECs or just different options for that you could utilize those, whatever communication system he's using to do that.
So could Kevin be an active participant as a first grader in his IEP meeting? And the answer is absolutely. Okay. What else? Okay, there. Okay. And then we'll go over here.
I really like using video modeling with my kiddos. So I wrote that down as my last thing that I thought of, but I really do think of like just having him showing him another student that's his age being able to speak up, but then also video modeling himself, because the research shows that they actually get more out of it if they see themselves doing it, and it helps with that self-esteem, which they're worried about. So
Yes, excellent. Excellent. We had a hand back here.
It sounds like in this case, you'd need to do some work with the family
100%.
in order to help then the student.
That's right, because it says right in there that they are worried that if he knows what his issues are, he is going to have, or they're worried about ruining his self-esteem. And so it's a lot of, and that's why that doesn't happen just right before. There's education for the families and time that it takes us. But once that's done at that young of an age, what a difference it'll be we will make in Kevin's life, because hopefully parents will see the value in including him. So awesome. Another one. Yes.
So I see a lot of kids who feel like they're being forced to attend the meeting. I don't want to have the meeting. I don't want to have a disability, and I don't want to talk about it. And so I'd start with reassurance that he's really important, that the adults want to be there and hear from him, that it's a safe place. He can't get in trouble for anything he says.
Yes.
And, we need you.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Wonderful.
One additional idea that I had because of the situation about the parents feeling like it would be damaging to self-esteem was potentially having a goal that you work toward, where he hears stories and identifies when other individuals need help, and that needing help and support is a commonality among individuals, and maybe bring that to the table for the parents to start to see we're working on this aspect that we all need help, and eventually this is something that maybe helps them feel a little more comfortable.
Of course. And, Robin mentioned she had 4 challenges before she got up this morning or went to breakfast or something. It's so true. And I think, federal law says strengths and weaknesses, right? And so we use the word challenges strategically because we all have challenges. And I think, this comes back to family empowerment, though, and family understanding the why between the importance of it. Because if a child's scared to come to the IEP, or they don't want to hear what they can't do, or all of that, oftentimes it's because we run our IEP meeting process starting out by talking about all the things your kid can't do. And so the process of the IEP, which we'll share in a minute, is so critical because we focus the first part of that IEP meeting only on strengths. So you're building the child up. And even if the child's not there, and we do this work, the parents always say, oh my gosh, I've never been to a meeting before where we talked about the things my child could do or strengths of that. I only hear what they can't do. So flipping that in the process piece of it is critical too, so that they learn and understand that we all have challenges. So that's part of the education as well. Anybody else? Oh, back there, Rob, sorry.
Getting my steps in. I love it.
I think that one of the strengths that sometimes goes under-recognized, I'll say not unrecognized, of including students in these meetings is the strengths that they're going to have potentially better than some of their peers who have never had the opportunity to self-advocate. Yeah. I teach in a college setting, and some of my students who have learned self-advocacy skills from their special education teachers or been parts of IEP meetings themselves and advocated for themselves in college, I notice they have the skills to tell me what they need, how I can support them when things are confusing for them. They have, a lot of executive functioning skills that are devoid from their peers. They're, typically developing, let's say, peers who never had reason to practice them, but still really need them. So I think seeing it as this, capacity building, like this is a strength that these students can have. I wish all of my students had the skills that those students have, and they got them from working with teachers like this who included them in these aspects of their development.
That's right. Excellent. Excellent.
Wonderful. And I also want to acknowledge that some of you are saying have already trickled in the family. And so not only are we preparing the student, but what can we do to prepare the family? And sometimes the families are there preparing the students for these self-advocacy skills. So praise to that as well. Okay, we're going to switch now to IEP meeting awareness. And we're going to see another video. In this video, the teacher planned to help her students better understand the IEP meeting process as well as the IEP meeting document. So they were getting ready for their meetings, and she was really going through all of these things so that they could have a more meaningful participation. So let's see what she says.
We did a multiple day lesson of what IEP at a glance was. And so we started with a brain dump as to why they thought they were in tutorial class. And then we broke down what an IEP was. So I asked them first of all, if they'd ever heard IEP, like that acronym. And some of them had, but they didn't know what IEP even stood for. So we broke down each of the words and then of what they were, but then defining them. So what is individualized? What does this mean for each person? So then we didn't talk specifically why each student had an IEP, but we talked about why someone would qualify for an IEP. Like why do I need this plan, this document? So then we broke down the 13 qualifying categories, so definitions, and then I wanted them to choose or brainstorm on what they thought their disability was or what their qualifying disability was. Some of them were close and it was like almost close, and then some of them were like not even close. I think one kid thought his might have been emotional disturbance, but it's SLD. We talked about if they had ever been to an IEP meeting. First of all, when does it happen? Is everyone's at the beginning of the year? Is everyone spread out? And then we related it to each kids in the class. So we talked about if they had ever attended some of their meetings, maybe when the last time they did attend it was, what it was like for them. Did they talk? Did they not talk? Were they invested? Were they even understanding what was going on? Some were honest and said it was boring. I don't know what was being talked about.
Being honest.
Well, they understood that it was for them. But maybe.
Okay. So what questions did she or things did she talk about with her students that would still be meaningful even at an adapted level for a student with Kevin's profile? What things, if you think about that, what could you do differently? This was at a high school level. So we would obviously have to adapt some of those things. Think about that for a minute, and then I'll ask you to share out. And if you want, actually, you can talk to your neighbor about it. That might help initiate some thought pattern.
If we're watching that, oh, like, yeah. Yeah. Well, I was gonna flip it here then.
And I can repeat it. So I can it's hard, very interesting. I don't think I'm gonna expand that because of the way I anyway, because of the but I'm just trying
Okay, wrap up your thoughts. And you can start writing down anything that sprang out to you. If one of your colleagues said something brilliant,
okay.
Maybe it was you who said the brilliant thing, and you can write that down. All right, she's already raising her hand. I love it. What a great team.
So I'm also a BCBA. And so I was trying to think about it from like, what would I use to teach any skill? And using a social story, reading it to him 2 to 3 times a week so that he knows, and breaking it down using like a task analysis or a visual task analysis so he knows what the IEP looks like where like the kind of the process of it, so that it's more in his realm.
Yes, you were right, team. That was excellent. Oh, yes, Natalie.
Some of my consulting work is supporting students with more extensive support needs at a city college that offers programming, and some of them, it's not necessarily even like specialized programming. It's accessing anything that the college has. And they need to be able to come into disability services and talk about their strengths and areas of need as it relates to their learning. And so I think just kind of scaffolding that over the years, right? How do you talk about what's hard? How do you talk about what you're good at? And then you could, in first grade, you could start with like what you were saying, pictures, and then just kind of build as they get older.
Yes, excellent. Anybody else have a brilliant thought to share? Okay, keep it to yourself. All right, now let's hear from the family. But before we do this, I'm going to just set it up a little bit. This is you've already met Pilar and Abby. And so this is Pilar helping to prepare Abby for the upcoming meeting. They've been in many meetings, and just note to self, Pilar is a speech pathologist. So she's not necessarily the common family member, but she definitely knows her daughter, knows some needs. And so that is common. A lot of us know that our children's needs. So she works with them. But what I would like you to do now is really put on that family hat. Because in Kevin's scenario, remember, they are hesitant to have him participate because of self-esteem. So their perception is, if you tell my son he's not good at something, his self-esteem is going to go down. No judgment there. They obviously have some experience with that occurring. So what could we do to help not just prepare the student, but the family in this upcoming meeting that hopefully isn't going to be in a week?
Yeah.
But it's going to be coming up, and especially this might be the first time for them. So it really depends on what kind of meeting it's going to be. And I saw a question in the back. I'm going to need to bring you this because they're recording. You're really making me work for it. I like it. I like it. Don't you dare.
I guess my question was just like outside of, the school team potentially trying to prepare the family with strategies like this, if there's like, and I also came late, apologies, I had a meeting, but like communication with the family about like the past that influences their feeling that this is going to harm his self-esteem. Because like you mentioned, maybe they had times in the past to kind of say like, can you tell me about maybe a time when you feel like his self-esteem has been harmed and what that looked like to make sure that you're not just like repeating the same things or triggering something that's been kind of like harmful to them.
Yes, we encourage that anytime we can communicate. One of the first questions even this morning was what causes conflict? And sometimes it's that we don't think through what could we be doing to help mitigate that communication. Yes.
Just a quick question on your way back. Who's going to do this? Who's going to provide the time and the effort and the attention when 14 to 20% of the students have IEPs?
Yeah.
Who's going to coach the families?
Can I take a stab at that?
Oh, sure.
Back when I don't know what slide it was, but we said who should do the preparation. And it would be impossible to just say, teacher, you're going to prepare the student for this. But if we think bigger, their IEP can actually have goals written for their areas of need in the way of how to prepare them for their IEP. Because when they're working on a goal that has a purpose, even if you're 5 or 6 or 7, and they know there's a reason that we're working on this goal for this end thing, because in 6 months, you're going to come to a meeting, blah, 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 that it becomes part of the actual IEP document. It isn't an additional, we need 30 minutes a day to educate the child on preparing them for the IEP. It's the entire team thinking through strategically, how can I write goals for his areas of need that will actually be self-determination and self-advocacy skills that will help prepare him for his IEP. So it's a shift in even the goals and objectives we write in our IEPs. But as far, and to answer about parents, how is that, okay, how would we prepare the families? That's really going to be up to the dedication of that teacher, of that team, to spend some time talking through that, honestly.
As well as family and parent, the PTIs,
all of it,
the communities, the collaboratives that we have all around the nation.
Yeah.
Not just federally funded, but throughout. And is that what you were going to say, or shall I say more? Yes.
EPs to those available resources for families. If they can happen, PTIs for sure, and that family support can discuss these things at large and bring it to them as the earlier they know, the more options they'll have for what they need, for what they can advocate, and put these ideas that maybe they haven't even thought about in the past.
Just a little personal example. I had a student who's one of his goals was to be able to communicate through his OGCOM. It was actually a Big Mac because it was 5,000 years ago. And so he had a switch. And so it was a communication goal. It wasn't written to do it in the IEP meeting. But that was one of the avenues that we demonstrated progress, was he was able to do it, and we practiced and we did all the fun videoing and the role playing, things like that. So he met the goal later because we had worked in different venues to meet that goal. And that was one of the ways we did it. So there's lots of ideas, and I love your question because it's provoking thought throughout. So thank you. Keep asking. Okay, back to the family. Let's listen to Pilar and Abby.
What did the two of you do to prepare for those meetings?
Well, from my perspective, we did a lot of anxiety prevention. Anne was very anxious about going into the meetings. She definitely viewed them as like a negative thing, where she thought she was going to get in trouble, because the principals were going to be there, all her teachers were going to be there. So a lot of what we did on our end was mitigate the anxiety and try and educate her on like the purpose of, okay, Ab, when we're going together, we're there to talk about you and how we can support you. So there's a lot of education. And then we would also try to simplify some of the language, just like you're going to hear people talking about things that you're doing well. You're going to be hearing things and talking about things that are hard. So we would try and ask her, when those things come up, what are the things you think you know how to do well? What are some of the things that are harder for you? What helps you? So she kind of had that preparation. We didn't always have the IEP. So we didn't have anything to really look at. So we just really talked about her speaking for herself, advocating, telling them, what was working, what wasn't working, what was hard, stuff like that.
Okay, so I think we kind of walked into that already. We did all the questions and the sharing before that, but any thoughts related to what you just saw? Yes.
Actually, just a question. I was wondering why she didn't have her IEP.
Oh, yeah. You mean the draft? They didn't do the draft ahead of time?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, and Pilar was talking about a draft ahead of time, didn't come home for them to review prior to, and certainly that would be, well, actually that would be outdated now. They even live in Illinois, and it's a law now that you have to have it. But in Illinois.
Yeah.
Yep. But
It
you're
is law.
absolutely right. And please, you need to communicate with your families and your staff that a draft is critical in going home. And at Keto Ed, we actually advocate that you don't send it home necessarily on the very legalized paperwork, that you send a draft of the IEP home in very common language on a we used to send them home on a Word doc marked draft everywhere and encourage the family to add to it, send it back, whatever we can do to really communicate and collaborate ahead of time. Because you want that document to be live and accessible to everybody. And we're here talking about students being able to write the draft in a Word document in the classroom as well. Help us create this, and then go home and talk to your family about it.
Or create that one pager.
Yeah.
And that's where your strengths, challenges, and accommodations are that we're going to discuss at the meeting. And then the student can either share that with their family, or if they're younger, it's a different vibe. And back to the paperwork thing, I want to say, we used to always just send the 25-page, whatever, with draft marked on it. Well, to a family, if you think about that, that's a very daunting legal document. And it doesn't feel very child-centered, even though, it's very compliance-driven. So what can we take from that to send home to families so that they can come prepared to discuss in a collaborative, conversational way their child's strengths in bulleted form, not paragraphs of they do 4 out of 5 of this and 2 out of 5 of this, but they are good in phonetics, define phonetics. They're good in this. This is a strength in common language. What are their challenges in common language? And then what goals are you proposing? Not by January 2024, 2000, all that words, just we're going to try to improve comprehension. We're going to try to improve math calculation, whatever that is, but in ways that they can understand it. It's very clear that way. It's one page. What are some of the, some people would say that they would propose services and others wouldn't because then they felt like it was predetermined. That's up to your state, district, or whatever.
And be careful.
Right. But something that is user-friendly and language that people can understand, not a bunch of pages of check boxes.
Well,
Yes.
and so wait, before you say anything, I do want, and I think we're going to be on the same wavelength because I am filing through all of my memories of being on campus. And be careful, like know your families too. There are families out there that are like, what are you hiding from me? Why didn't you send home that legal paperwork that I'm used to? So if you're going to do that, explain why. Have them understand what this is about and fine, send the legal home too and show that it matches. Okay. Help us understand something else.
I was just going to say, we can't do that in the state of Tennessee. We're required to send if a draft is created, the draft document is required to go home 48 hours in it.
So could it be that one pager on top of it?
No, it has to be the actual IEP. I mean, yeah.
Just to make it user-friendly?
I don't know that the state would recommend that because I think that they would be very afraid of confusion and things getting twisted around.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and we actually just passed another law that all evaluation paperwork has to be sent home prior to the eligibility meeting, also 48 hours in advance.
And can you imagine from a family standpoint, getting that evaluation paperwork with standard scores, T-scores, whatever, do you think they understand that?
And you have 48 hours to digest it.
Don't get me wrong, but that is a lot, but I get it. So going back to involving the kid in the IEP. So if we do have to, by law, whatever that is, send home the marked draft on the legal paperwork, absolutely, that's what we have to do. But then when we come to the meeting, we're going to talk about it in layman's terms, not read the IEP document to the team and go page by page. And that's going to take us into this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Any other questions or thoughts on that? That's good input. Know your state regulations and guidelines. You don't want to end up making things worse on you. Where is conflict created, right? Yes.
I was just going to say, and make sure you have a visual copy for the parent, because I have been in so many IEP meetings where they're just being talked at. And if we're talking about the student being a part of it, the student is not going to be able to process that without something in front of them. So
how about a folder with it in there? We all come to the IEP meetings with stacks of stuff and our paperwork and our folders. Some of us have computers, whatever, and we're doing stuff. What about providing a folder with the child's picture in it and the IEP document and a pen, and that's given to the family? I mean, just that alone speaks volumes on this collaborative process that we need to have and providing to them that way. That's great.
Lots of ways. And okay, I'm going to go on because we need to get through this, but I have so many things popping up here. So if anybody wants to talk after. Okay, the next 3 slides, I'm going to give you 2 tools. This is one of them. This is the IEP.
In your folders.
It's in your folders if you'd like a copy of it. This is a general IEP meeting agenda. It is not intended to make big decisions for you, but the reason we're giving it to you is it is a guideline. It does follow the big federal law in the 3 compartments: present levels, annual goals, and special education. And there's more to discuss. There's more required components, but these are overarching IEP agendas. The reason we're bringing it up today is the way the teacher used this agenda to help educate her student about the IEP process and where the student might want to interject her information and talk about. So we're going to watch that video and then we're going to talk about it. Write down some ideas of how you could do this with a younger child.
Kevin.
With Kevin, yeah, the younger child.
Kevin.
Here we go, the Kevin.
We're going to talk about what it's going to look like in your meeting.
Can you guys hear that?
Talking about it. I want you to think, what part of the meeting do you feel like you can be responsible for? Okay, so when we first start the meeting, everybody comes in and we do introductions. And so that's where I invite everybody. I tell them this is your annual meeting. Everybody introduces who they are. Sometimes when students leave their IEP, that's a part that they like to do. Oh, this is my English teacher, Mrs. So-and-so. This is my math teacher. So that would be one way that you could get involved, is introducing everyone. After we do introductions, we're going to talk about this part that you and I just talked about. First, we're going to talk, everybody's going to share what we think your strengths are, right? So you could share out what you think your strengths are, and then ask the opinion of the people that are there. So whatever teachers come, what do you think my strengths are, right? After we talk about strengths, we'll talk about challenges. And again, that's something you can share. You can tell everybody. So when you think about your disability, what do you think? How does it impact you? What are the challenges that it creates for your learning? Thinking about all of those things that we just discussed. And when we have your meeting, your mom usually comes, your teachers come, I'm there, Ms. Schreiner's there. What part of what we just talked about do you feel like you could be responsible for? Telling the teacher's mind, strength, and challenges. Okay. And when you do that, will you be able to ask them and get that information from them? What it looks like from them? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Okay, good. So she was able to look at that agenda, use the visual to decide where. And of course, this wasn't just a one-day lesson. They had really dug into a whole idea of what is an agenda for an IEP? This is how a meeting's going to run. This is what we're going to do. Let's practice talking about your strengths. Now let's practice asking questions, etc. Anything you wrote down, and I know we have to go quick because I see now that I'm running out of time, but yes.
Well, this is a question that comes from a lot of inexperience. I noticed the mom said, when you think about your disability, and that kind of raised a red flag.
Me too.
For me.
Me too. And that was the teacher, not the mom.
Oh, I mean, the teacher.
Just,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole subject around that.
I agree with you.
Like the wording. Okay.
And I don't know if you've noticed that when we've been talking this, we talk about the age of the child, the culture in which they work, and their ability level, not their disability. So yeah, we hear that.
Very good. Yes.
I love the line.
I know.
I know.
For the streamers, I love the line, what part of what we just talked about do you think you could take responsibility for? To me, that's this is that whole presentation in a nutshell, because the kid can say, this part, not me. This part, yeah.
Yeah.
Ownership.
Yeah. Yeah, or I'm not talking.
And then work more. Yes, thank you for that quote. That's very good. Okay, last tool that I'm going to show you really quick. This is also in your folder. It's a roles worksheet, but it's not your typical roles of your time at the meeting. It's called what we call efficiency roles to help the meeting run more efficiently and more effectively, but also what roles could the student take on? And this is not an exhausted list. You can come up with your own and work with the student to perhaps take on a role that they could do during the meeting. I had already talked to you guys about my student who was a greeter. So he stood at the door and greeted. I had another student who loved to work with a seating chart. It's very organized. And so he was so excited that he got to tell everybody where to sit. He made name tents. He greeted them and brought them in. So that was his way of participating. That was at his level during the preparation. And guess where his mom didn't sit next to?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't sit next to the mom. But anyway, that's a whole nother training. But anyway, this is something that we have done, that you would work with your student ahead of time, do some practice, do some role plays, or think of something different that you would want them to. And I would encourage you to have other members of the IEP team also do some of these roles so that you have a very interactive, it's not just one person doing all the work in the IEP meeting. I'm going to throw it over to Cass for the outcome.
The outcome. All right. So we're going to buzz through this because we only have 5 more minutes. So the outcome, what is the fabulous stuff that comes from the work that we're doing? It's really important that you not only practice with the kids, obviously, prepare them, then practice it, and then they'll actually do it. So you're going to watch a video seeing, it's Audrey, I believe, go from the prep to the practice to the final product.
So here's the next goal. IEP timing and self-advocacy. And then you came up with your phrase of it, right? There's your progress and what you still need. Sometimes I do talk out loud and don't raise my hand. And then understanding rhetorical questions. Yeah. Like when someone's presenting and you're answering it. Yeah. And it's rhetorical, right? So what do you think maybe would be the next step?
The next step, I'm not really sure what to do on that. Kind of like work on understanding if it's for rhetorical questions or not, I guess.
Okay. Okay. No, I like that. Do you think in the IEP meeting we could just say that? Like, you know that this is what you struggle with. Yeah. And we could say to the other teachers.
I'm not really sure how to fix it.
I don't know how to fix it. Do you have suggestions of a goal? And the teachers can help provide that information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So will you ask that question?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So
okay. You want to go to challenges?
This is the meeting.
Okay. So one of my challenges is for subjects like history, I'll take too much notes and sometimes it's a little repetitive because I'm unsure on what's the most important thing to take or what's going to be the most important for a test or something like that. Do you guys notice any other struggles?
Okay, I'm going to stop there.
That wonderful?
Isn't that powerful? Yeah. Versus the teacher handing the team stuff that says, yeah, she has trouble with note taking. She needs a copy of the notes. And they're like, okay, because it's just like a standard accommodation. We're hearing from Aubrey exactly what she needs.
And she's practicing communication skills. She's asking questions, open-ended questions.
Yeah, she's fabulous. Fabulous. Okay, there's 2 additional goals that come out of having the student there. One is that they can meet their IEP goals. We've already talked about that. And one is that it does mitigate some conflict. We'll go here first so you see a goal that was met.
And in an IEP I had last week, so the student is, one of her categories is deaf and hard of hearing. And so the DHH teacher came and had her goal drafted. And the goal was that the student would write a letter to her teachers describing her disability and her needs and her accommodations. And I giggled. Yeah. And then I said, well, she's met that goal. And then I turned to the student and I said, can you explain what you've done so far that's meeting this goal? And they were just blown away. And so then and there we drafted the next level. So what is the next level for this student? I think that when I think about, it's harder to think about elementary, but when I think about middle school students and then our students, this process of self-led, student-led IEP, all of the areas that we're writing goals for are being met in different ways. And we just have to be creative about identifying them. And we don't have to write goals in every single area.
So that goes to that point that we talked about before about how it takes a village of people to come together to actually find out what their needs are, to write the goals so that they can prepare for their IEP and meet those goals in that process. It becomes way more meaningful for them. Mitigating conflict is an additional advantage. I'm going to play in the...
If I believe in something, I'm less likely to be upset about it. And if I understand the ins and outs and the whys of why something's happening, I'm less likely to have conflict about it. And so I think that it has opened doors for communication, like I said at the beginning, with teachers, with parents, with students in ways that I wasn't having before. And that common language, that common familiar expectation, I just think that it is very preventative.
If we come into a meeting with an IEP and it says the goals and objectives and it says the accommodations and there's some conflict behind it, maybe the family doesn't agree with that, what the school's saying or whatnot, or a student comes with some sort of communication about what their true needs are, That alone will mitigate the conflict. You're going to be a lot less likely to argue that if you're hearing it from the student. So it does have a way of doing that. Okay, our time's up. Here's what I'd like you to do. Open your folder. There is an action plan within your folder, I believe, and we know that if we write things down, we're more likely to do them. Take just a minute and write down 1 or 2 things that you want to take away and either talk to your teams about, resources you want to share, whatever. Is the action plan in there or did we not put it in there? Okay, it's not. Really? Wow. Okay, well then just talk to your teammates about, no, we're out of time anyway, but please think about what can you use from all of this to go back to your teams and share immediately. And your families. Exactly, your students, all of it. And you could write it on the back of a piece of paper, but because we're out of time, we're just going to go to the end here. You do have a QR code in there. If you would love to talk to us more about anything that we've talked about or anything else, you can use that QR code, or you can, the QR code is also in your folder, so you don't have to do it now. Please follow us on social media. We love to hear from you on all of that in likes and stuff. We post lots of things. So anyway, we're so honored to be with people that are like-minded and that are doing this work. So thank you all so much for being here. And we look forward to seeing you at the reception tonight.
And if you liked this, then fill out the QR code. And if you hated it, don't.